The stars looked cold and distant through the window of the U-East Pathfinder. Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge, watching the endless black space around them. His ship was far from Earth, farther than any human had ever traveled before. The Pathfinder was humanity's best exploration vessel, built to discover new worlds and new life among the stars. Jake was a tall man with graying hair and calm blue eyes. He had been exploring space for 20 years, but this mission felt different. They were heading into a part of the galaxy that no human had ever seen. The star charts ended here, and beyond lay only mystery. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings," said Lisa Rodriguez from her station. She was the ship's chief engineer, a smart woman who knew every bolt and wire on the Pathfinder. Her dark eyes were focused on the screens in front of her, and her face showed worry. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of readings?" "The engines are acting up. The power levels keep jumping around. I've never seen anything like it." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over the controls, trying to fix whatever was wrong. Ben Carter, the science officer, looked up from his own station. He was a young man with curious eyes who loved to study new things. "Captain, I'm seeing energy patterns that don't match anything in our databases. It's like the space around us is different somehow." Amy Johnson, their communications specialist, turned from her station. She was a quiet woman with a gift for languages and signals. "Sir, I'm not getting any signals from Earth. It's like something is blocking our transmissions." Jake felt a cold fear in his stomach. They were alone out here, millions of miles from home. If something went wrong, no one would know. No one would come to help them. Suddenly, the ship shook. The lights flickered, and alarms began to sound. Lisa's hands flew over her controls, but the shaking got worse. "Captain, we're losing power," Lisa shouted over the noise. "The main engine is failing." The ship shook again, harder this time. Jake grabbed onto his chair to keep from falling. Through the windows, he could see sparks flying from the ship's hull. "All hands, brace for emergency." Jake called into the ship's communication system. "Lisa, can you fix it? I'm trying, but it's not working." Lisa's voice was tight with fear. "The engine is completely dead. We're stuck here." The Pathfinder drifted in the darkness, powerless and alone. Jake looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were good people. They would not give up easily. Far away, in a place that existed between the stars, something noticed the small human ship. The Zeraphine Collective had been watching the galaxy for thousands of years. They were beings of pure energy, no longer bound by flesh and blood like the younger races. They lived in huge crystal ships that floated through space like glowing temples. Arbiter Vexton felt the presence of the human vessel. To him, it was like a small candle flickering in the darkness. The creatures inside were primitive, still trapped in their physical bodies. They were driven by emotions and limited by their crude understanding of the universe. "Observe," Vexton spoke to the other Seraphim. His voice was like music, flowing directly into their minds. "Another young race struggles against the darkness. They are lost and afraid." The other Seraphim gathered around to watch. They saw the humans moving around their broken ship, trying to fix what could not be fixed. It was amusing to them, like watching children play with toys they did not understand. "Should we help them?" asked another Seraphim. "Yes," Vexton decided. "It is our duty to guide the lesser beings. These humans show promise, but they need our wisdom to grow." The Seraphim had helped many races before. They would appear to struggling civilizations and offer their guidance. Some races accepted their help and learned to transcend their physical forms. Others were too proud and had to be taught more firmly. Vex then gave the command, and the great cathedral ship began to move. It was a vessel of impossible beauty, made of crystal and light. It was larger than a human city, with spires that reached. into space like fingers touching the stars. On the Pathfinder, Jake and his crew worked desperately to repair their ship. Don Wright, the ship's doctor, and Kate Murphy, the security chief, had joined them on the bridge. They all knew their situation was bad. "We have enough life support for maybe a week," Dan said. He was an older man with kind eyes and steady hands. "After that, ... Don't talk like that," Kate interrupted. She was a strong woman who never backed down from a fight. "We'll find a way." "Kate's right," Jake said. "We don't give up." "That's not what humans do." Lisa looked up from her work. "Captain, I might be able to get some power back, but it will take time. Maybe days." "Then we have days," Jake said simply. Amy suddenly turned from her station. Her face was white with shock. "Captain, you need to see this." Jake looked at her. Screen. At first, he saw nothing but stars. Then, slowly, something appeared. It was huge, bigger than anything he had ever seen. It glowed with soft light, and its surface seemed to be made of crystal. "What is that?" Ben whispered the crystal. Ship moved closer. As it approached, the humans could see that it was not just large. It was impossible. It had no engines that they could see, yet it moved through space like it was floating through water. Its surface was covered with towers and spires that seemed to grow from the crystal itself. "It's beautiful," Amy said softly. Jake was not sure if beautiful was the right word. The ship was amazing, but it also made him feel small and afraid. Whoever built it was far beyond human understanding. "Captain," Lisa said, her voice strange. "Our ship ... it's being pulled toward that thing." Jake watched as the crystal ship opened like a flower. Inside, he could see a vast space filled with soft light. The Pathfinder was being drawn in, whether they wanted to go or not. "All hands, prepare for whatever comes next," Jake announced. "We're about to meet someone new." As their ship was pulled into the alien vessel, Jake wondered if they were being rescued or captured. The answer, he knew, would change everything. The Pathfinder settled onto a platform inside the crystal ship. Jake and his crew looked out the windows with wonder and fear. They were inside something that seemed more like a church than a spaceship. The walls glowed with soft light, and everything was made of what looked like living crystal. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "I'm getting signals now, but they're not like anything we've ever heard." The signals were strange, not radio waves or laser communications, but something that seemed to speak directly to their minds. The sounds were beautiful, like music and voices mixed together. Then they appeared. The Seraphim came through the crystal walls as if the walls were not there. They were tall figures made of pure light, with shapes that seemed almost human, but not quite. They moved without walking, floating just above the ground. Their faces were hard to see clearly, changing like flames in the wind. High Arbiter Vex, then, approached the human ship. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once, filling their minds with words they could understand. "Welcome, young ones," Vex then said. His voice had a sound like bells ringing. "You are safe now. We are the Seraphim, guardians of this galaxy. We have come to help you." Jake opened the ship's door and stepped out onto the crystal platform. His crew followed behind him, staying close together. The air tasted strange, full of energy that made their skin tingle. "Thank you for saving us," Jake said. "I'm Captain Jake Sullivan of the Earthship Pathfinder." "Earth," Vex then repeated the word like he was tasting it. "Yes, we know of your world, a young planet with a young race. You have much to learn." More Seraphim appeared around them. They moved in perfect harmony, like dancers who had practiced the same dance for centuries. Their light forms pulsed in rhythm with each other. "Come," Vex then said. "We will provide you with quarters. Your physical forms require rest and sustenance." The Seraphim led them through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls showed pictures that moved like living memories, stars being born, planets forming, civilizations rising and falling. It was beautiful, but also cold, like watching a movie about life instead of living it. "This place is incredible," Ben said, looking around with wide eyes. "The technology here is beyond anything we've dreamed of." "Technology is a crude word for what we have achieved," said one of the Seraphim. "We have moved beyond the need for machines. We shape reality with our will alone." Lisa frowned. As an engineer, she wanted to understand how things worked. "How do you power all this? What kind of energy source do you use?" The Seraphim made a sound like gentle laughter. "Power? Energy? These are concepts for beings still trapped in physical form. We have transcended such limitations." "But everything needs energy," Lisa insisted. "Even light needs a source." Vex then turned his glowing form toward her. "Your mind is bound by the laws you think you understand. When you evolve beyond flesh, you will see how small your knowledge truly is." Amy noticed something strange about the way the Seraphim talked. They all seemed to agree with each other perfectly. No one argued or had different opinions. It was like listening to one voice speaking through many mouths. The quarters they were given were beautiful but uncomfortable. The beds were too soft, the air too perfect, the light too steady. Everything was designed to be perfect, but it felt wrong somehow. "I don't like this," Kate whispered when they were alone. "Something's not right about these aliens." "They saved us," Dan pointed out. "They could have left us to die." "Maybe," Jake said, "but I get the feeling they didn't save us out of kindness. They want something from us." That night, the Seraphim Council met to discuss the humans. They gathered in a great hall made of pure crystal, their light forms creating patterns in the air. "These humans are more primitive than most," said one council member. "They still fight wars among themselves. They pollute their own world. They are driven by base emotions. Yet they show potential," Exton replied. "They have reached the stars despite their limitations. With proper guidance, they could evolve." "Should we relocate their entire species?" asked another. "Their current world is unsuitable for proper development." "Perhaps," Exton said. "Or we could begin the process of forced evolution. Help them shed their physical forms and join us in transcendence." The council discussed humanity's fate like farmers talking about crops. They had done this before with other races. Some had accepted their help willingly. Others had resisted and been forced to change. "The humans seem attached to their individuality," observed a council member. "This could make the process difficult." "All young races cling to such illusions," Vexton said. "Once they understand the beauty of unity, they will embrace it gladly." Back in their quarters, the human crew could not sleep. The perfection around them felt oppressive, like being trapped in a museum. Lisa had been thinking about what the Seraphim had said about transcending physical limitations. "Captain, I think they're lying to us." Jake looked at her. "What do you mean?" "They claim they don't need technology, but look around us. This whole ship is one giant machine. It has to be powered by something." Ben nodded. "Lisa's right. And have you noticed how they all think exactly the same way? It's like they're all connected somehow." Amy had been quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "They keep talking about how we need to evolve, but I think they're afraid of us." "Afraid?" Kate asked. "Why would beings like that be afraid of us?" "Because we're different," Amy said. "We argue with each other. We disagree. We make mistakes and learn from them. They can't understand that." Jake thought about what his crew was saying. The Seraphim claimed to be perfect, but their perfection felt empty. They had given up something important when they became beings of pure energy. The next day, Vex then came to speak with them again. "We have decided," he announced. "Your species shows promise, but you need guidance. We will help you evolve beyond your current limitations." "What if we don't want to evolve?" Jake asked. The question seemed to surprise Vex then. All intelligent beings desire transcendence. Why would you choose to remain trapped in flesh when you could become something greater? "Because this is who we are," Jake said simply. "Humans choose their own path." The Seraphim's light flickered, showing confusion. Choice is an illusion created by limited understanding. When you see the truth, you will understand. But Jake could see that Vex then did not understand humans at all. The Seraphim had forgotten what it meant to be truly alive. They had traded their humanity, or whatever they had been before, for a cold perfection that was no longer real life. "We need time to think about this," Jake said. "Time is what you have lost," Vex then replied. "Your ship cannot be repaired with primitive methods. You must accept our help or perish in the void." As the Seraphim left, Jake looked at his crew. They were scared but determined. They would not give up their humanity without a fight, even if that fight seemed hopeless. Outside, in the vast corridors of the crystal ship, the Seraphim began to prepare for humanity's forced evolution. They had never had a species refuse their gift before. It was time to show these humans that choice was indeed an illusion. Jake decided his crew needed to learn more about their captors. While the Seraphim thought the humans were resting, Jake sent his people to explore the crystal ship. They split up into pairs, trying to look like they were just curious tourists. Lisa and Ben went to study the ship's structure. Amy and Kate searched for any kind of communication center. Jake and Dan explored the areas where the Seraphim gathered. What they found was disturbing. Lisa discovered that the beautiful crystal walls were actually massive machines. Hidden inside the glowing surfaces were complex systems that converted matter into energy. The Seraphim were not as free from technology as they claimed. They needed these machines to exist. "Ben, look at this," Lisa whispered, pointing to patterns in the crystal. "These are power conduits. The whole ship is one giant life support system." Ben studied the patterns with his scientific eye. "You're right. And look here. These systems are old. Really old. Some of them are starting to break down. What happens if these machines fail?" Lisa asked. "I think the Seraphim would die," Ben said quietly. "They're not really beings of pure energy. They're more like computer programs running on this hardware." Meanwhile, Amy and Kate found something even more troubling. In a vast hall filled with floating crystal screens, they saw records of other species the Seraphim had helped. "Look at this," Kate said, pointing to images on the screens. "These are other alien races." Amy studied the records. The images showed the progression of each species from their natural forms to beings of light like the Seraphim. But something was wrong with the pictures. "Kate, these beings all look the same in the end," Amy said. "Different species, but once they became energy beings, they lost all their unique features. It's like they were erased," Kate whispered, "turned into copies of the Seraphim." The records showed dozens of civilizations that had been transcended. All of them had ended up exactly the same, perfect, unified, and somehow empty. Jake and Dan found the most disturbing discovery of all. In the deepest part of the ship, they found what looked like a graveyard. It was a vast chamber filled with crystal containers. Inside each container was a faint glow, the remains of beings who had tried to resist the Seraphim's gift of transcendence. "My God," Dan whispered. "These are the ones who said no." Jake looked at the endless rows of containers. Each one held the energy pattern of someone who had chosen to remain themselves rather than join the collective. The Seraphim had preserved them, but they were clearly prisoners. "This is what happens to species that refuse their help," Jake said. Grimly, an old voice spoke from one of the containers. It was weak and tired, but still defiant. New ones came. Jake approached the container. Inside, a faint light pulsed weakly. Who are you? Last of the HFY high. We refuse their gift. Now we this slowly. How long have you been here? Anne asked. Centuries perhaps longer. Time means nothing here. The dying alien's voice grew stronger for a moment. They you humans. You are different. Do not let them take chaos. Our chaos? Jake asked. Your ability to disagree to change, to grow. They have forgotten how to be truly alive. The voice faded back to a whisper. Warn your people. Perfect unity is Jake and Dan left the chamber in shock. The Seraphim were not the benevolent guardians they claimed to be. They were collectors, gathering up the life force of entire civilizations and turning them into copies of themselves. Back on the Pathfinder, the crew met to share what they had learned. The picture they put together was terrifying. They're parasites. Lisa said angrily. They need other species to survive. That's why they keep converting civilizations. And once they convert you, you lose everything that made you unique, Amy added. You become just another voice in their collective. Ben was looking at the data they had gathered. I think I understand what's happening. The Seraphim are dying. Their original bodies are long gone, and the machines that keep them alive are breaking down. They need fresh energy patterns to keep their collective running. So they're not trying to help us evolve, Kate said. They're trying to eat us. Jake nodded grimly. And they've been doing it for thousands of years. No wonder they think they're gods. They've consumed entire civilizations. Dan was thinking about the dying alien in the crystal chamber. That creature said they fear us. Why would they fear humans? Because we're unpredictable, Amy said. We don't all think the same way. We argue, we disagree, we make our own choices. They're collective. Mind can't understand that. Lisa was already working on her tablet, making calculations. If their system depends on perfect unity, then maybe our chaos could disrupt it. How? Jake asked. I'm not sure yet, Lisa admitted, but every system has a weak point, even theirs. Just then, Vexton appeared in their quarters without warning. His light form flickered with what might have been anger. You have been exploring where you should not go, he said. His musical voice now had an edge to it. This shows you are not ready for transcendence. We're ready for the truth, Jake said, standing up to face the alien. You're not trying to help us. You're trying to destroy us. Destroy? Vexton's form pulsed brighter. We offer eternal life, perfect unity, freedom from the pain of individual existence. How is this destruction? Because we wouldn't be us anymore, Amy said. We'd just be copies of you. Vexton was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. Individual existence is suffering. We have moved beyond such crude concepts. Then why do you need us? Ben asked. If your way is so perfect, why do you keep converting other species? Another long pause. Jake could see that Vexton was struggling with the question. The Seraphim had been telling themselves they were helping other species for so long that they had forgotten their real motives. You will understand when you join us, Vexton said finally. The process will begin soon. Your resistance only proves that you need our guidance. After he left, the crew sat in silence for a while. They all knew their time was running out. Soon, The Seraphim would try to force them to join their collective. "We need to get back to our ship," Jake said. "If there's any chance of escaping, it's there." "The engines are still dead," Lisa reminded him. "And we fix them," Jake said simply. "Or we die trying, but we don't give up our humanity." Kate smiled grimly. "I'd rather die as a human than live as one of them." "We're not going to die," Jake said with determination. "We're going to show these so-called gods that humanity doesn't surrender." As they prepared to return to the Pathfinder, none of them knew that their conversation had been overheard. The Seraphim Collective had been listening to every word, and they were beginning to realize that humans were indeed different from any species they had encountered before. For the first time in millennia, a Seraphim Collective felt something they had almost forgotten: doubt. The Seraphim Council gathered in their great crystal hall. For the first time in centuries, there was disagreement among them. The humans had planted seeds of doubt that were growing like weeds through their perfect unity. "These humans are dangerous," said one council member. "They resist our harmony and spread chaos through their very presence." "Perhaps we should simply convert them by force," suggested another. "Their consent is not required." But Vex then was troubled by something the humans had said. Why did the Seraphim need to convert other species if their way was truly perfect? The question burned in his mind like acid. "The decision is made," Vex then announced, pushing away his doubts. "We will begin the conversion process immediately. These humans will serve as an example for their entire species." On the Pathfinder, Jake and his crew worked desperately to repair their ship. Lisa had torn apart half the engine room, trying to fix systems that seemed hopeless broken. "I can't get main power back online," Lisa said, frustration clear in her voice. "But I might be able to jury-rig something that could get us moving." "How long do you need?" Jake asked. "Hours, maybe days. I'm having to rebuild everything from scratch." Jake looked out the window at the crystal walls surrounding them. "We may not have days." Ben was studying the energy readings from the Seraphim ship. "Captain, I think I found something. Their collective consciousness operates on a specific frequency. If we could disrupt that frequency, ... we could break their connection," Amy finished. "Like jamming a radio signal." "Exactly. But we'd need to get the signal right into their main systems." Kate was checking their weapons. They only had small sidearms, nothing that could damage a ship this size. "How do we fight beings made of energy?" "We don't fight them," Jake said. "We show them what they've lost." Dan looked confused. "What do you mean?" "They've forgotten how to be individuals. They can't understand why we won't join them, because they can't remember what it feels like to be truly alive." Before anyone could respond, the Seraphim appeared. Not just Vex then this time, but dozens of them. They filled the ship's corridors like glowing ghosts. "The time for choice has ended," Vex then announced. "You will join us now, willingly or not." Jake stepped forward. "And if we refuse?" "Refusal is not possible. We have studied your species. We know your weaknesses." The Seraphim began to glow brighter. Jake felt something touching his mind, alien thoughts trying to push into his consciousness. Around him, his crew was experiencing the same invasion, but something unexpected happened. Instead of being overwhelmed, the humans began to resist in ways the Seraphim had never encountered. Lisa's engineering mind started analyzing the alien mental connection, treating it like a technical problem to solve. Ben's scientific curiosity began studying the Seraphim, even as they tried to convert him. Amy used her communication skills to broadcast confusing signals back through the connection. The Seraphim had expected fear, confusion, or surrender. They got questions, analysis, and stubborn defiance instead. "What are you doing?" Vex then demanded as his perfect conversion process began to break down. "What humans do," Jake said through gritted teeth. We adapt. Kate and Dan were fighting. A mental invasion with pure willpower, refusing to let go of themselves. Their resistance created ripples of discord through the Seraphim collective. For the first time in millennia, individual Seraphim began to experience conflicting thoughts. Some wanted to stop the conversion process. Others wanted to use more force. A few even began to wonder if the humans might be right. The perfect unity of the collective cracked. Impossible, Vex then said, but his voice was no longer perfectly confident. You are only 6 beings. We are thousands. Yeah, Jake said with a grim smile. But we're 6 individuals. You're just copies of the same thing. The conversion process continued, but it was chaotic now. The Seraphim could not maintain their perfect harmony while dealing with human unpredictability. Lisa managed to break free from the mental connection, long enough to reach her tools. She began rewiring systems, not to fix the engines, but to create the frequency disruptor Ben had described. Amy, she shouted, I need you to boost the signal. Amy fought through the alien thoughts in her head and crawled to the communications console. Her hands shook as she worked to amplify Lisa's improvised weapon. Ben was experiencing something strange. As the Seraphim tried to absorb his mind, he was learning about them in return. He could see their history, their fears, their slow decay. Over the centuries. Captain, he called out, they're dying. Their collective is breaking down. That's why they need us. The revelation hit the Seraphim like a bomb. Ben had discovered their deepest secret. They were not immortal gods, but failing machines trying to preserve themselves by consuming other lives. Vexthan's form flickered with panic. Silence him. He cannot know. But it was too late. Ends. Discovery spread through the mental connection to the other humans, and from them back into the Seraphim collective. For the first time in centuries, the Seraphim were forced to confront the truth about themselves. Kate and Dan used the moment of confusion to grab weapons. Not to fight the energy beings, but to destroy the crystal conduits that powered the conversion. Chambers, stop, Vexthan commanded. You will destroy us all. Maybe that's what needs to happen, Jake said. Lisa's frequency disruptor came online with a high-pitched whine. The sound cut through the Seraphim's collective consciousness like a knife through silk. Individual voices began to emerge from there. Unified chorus. Some Seraphim cried out in fear as they experienced individual thought for the first time in ages. Others felt a rush of long-forgotten emotions. A few even felt something like joy at being themselves again. The conversion process collapsed completely. The humans found themselves free, standing in the middle of chaos as the Seraphim collective fell apart around them. What have you done? Vexthan demanded, but his voice was different now. For the first time, he sounded like an individual rather than a spokesperson for the collective. We've given you back your lives, Jake said. Whether you want them or not. The crystal ship began to shake as the Seraphim's perfect systems failed. Without their unified will to maintain the structure, the ancient machines started breaking down. We have to get out of here, Lisa said, her hands flying over the engine controls. This whole place is coming apart. But Jake was looking at Vexthan, who was staring at his own hands in wonder. The High Arbiter was experiencing individual consciousness for the first time in centuries, and the shock was overwhelming. I can think my own thoughts, Vexthan whispered. I can disagree with the others. I can choose. That's what it means to be alive, Jake said gently around him. Other Seraphim were going through the same awakening. Some were terrified by the return of individual consciousness. Others were embracing it with desperate joy. The ship shook again, harder this time. Cracks appeared in the crystal walls. We need to go now. Lisa shouted. Jake looked at Vexthan one last time. You can still choose, he said. All of you can choose. As the humans ran for their ship, the Seraphim collective continued to fracture. Their age of false divinity was ending, replaced by something much more dangerous and wonderful, the return of individual life. The Pathfinder's engines roared to life, just as the crystal ship began tearing itself apart. Lisa had worked a miracle, combining human engineering with salvaged Seraphim technology. The hybrid system should not have worked, but somehow it did. "Hold on!" Jake shouted as their ship shot out of the collapsing cathedral-ship dot behind them. The massive Seraphim vessel was breaking into pieces. But it was not just falling apart, it was transforming. As the collective consciousness shattered, individual, Seraphim were making their own choices about what to become. Some Seraphim tried desperately to restore their unity, gathering together and pulsing with synchronized light. They were terrified of individual existence and wanted their safe, perfect collective back. Others embraced their newfound independence with joy. They spread out through space, their energy forms dancing and spinning in patterns that had never been seen before. For the first time in millennia, they were creating something new. A few Seraphim began to do something even more shocking. They started to change back. Their energy forms grew solid, taking on physical shapes as they remembered what it felt like to have bodies. Vexton watched it all from the bridge of the smaller crystal ship. He had chosen to remain in energy form, but as an individual, not as part of the collective. The experience was overwhelming. He could feel emotions he had forgotten existed. Fear, wonder, loneliness, hope. Follow the humans, he told his ship's systems. But now it was his choice, not a command from the collective. The Pathfinder limped through space, its hybrid engines holding together through sheer stubbornness. Lisa monitored the systems, amazed that her improvised repairs were working. "Captain," Amy called from her station. "I'm getting a signal. It's from the Seraphim ship that's following us." "Put it through," Jake said. Vexton's voice came over the speakers, but it sounded different now. Individual, uncertain. "Captain Sullivan, may I speak with you?" "Go ahead," Jake said. I do not know how to thank you. For the first time in centuries, I can think my own thoughts. I can make my own choices." "You don't need to thank us," Jake replied. "We just showed you what you already knew deep down." "But we had forgotten," Vexton said. "We thought perfection was the goal. We thought unity meant strength. We were wrong." Ben was monitoring the breakdown of the Seraphim collective on his instruments. "Captain, what we're seeing out there is incredible. They're not just breaking apart, they're evolving." Through the ship's windows, they could see Seraphim energy beings experimenting with new forms, new ways of existing. Some were joining together in small groups based on friendship rather than forced unity. Others were exploring what it meant to be completely alone for the first time. "This is what we lost," Vexton continued. "The ability to grow, to change, to become something we were. Not before. We thought transcendence meant the end of growth, but it should have been the beginning." Kate was watching the long-range sensors. "Captain, I'm seeing something else. The Seraphim aren't just changing themselves. They're freeing the other species. They captured." Jake looked at the display. Throughout space around them, energy patterns were being released from crystal containers. The imprisoned consciousness of dozens of species were being set free. "We are releasing all those we held captive," Vexton explained. "It is the right thing to do." A concept we had forgotten. Dan was monitoring the life support systems. "Captain, we should be able to make it back to Earth with these new engines. It'll take time, but we'll get home." Jake nodded, but he was thinking about more than just getting home. "Vexton, what will your people do now?" "We do not know," the former High Arbiter admitted. "Some want to return to physical form. Others wish to remain as energy beings, but live as individuals. A few are trying to rebuild the collective, but it will never be the same. And you? Amy asked. Vexton was quiet for a long moment. I think I want to learn. For centuries, we believed we had all the answers. Now I realize we had forgotten the questions. The Pathfinder continued its journey home, but they were not alone. Several individual Seraphim chose to follow them, curious about humanity and eager to learn what they had missed during their time in the collective. Over the weeks that followed, the humans and Seraphim shared their knowledge and experiences. The aliens were amazed by human creativity, the way humans could disagree and still work together, the way they could fail and try again. You make the same mistakes over and over, one young Seraphim observed. Yet you keep trying. Why? Because that's how we learn, Lisa explained. Each mistake teaches us something new. The Seraphim had avoided mistakes by creating a perfect system. But in doing so, they had stopped learning, stopped growing, stopped truly living. Ben made a discovery that shocked everyone. As he studied the rescued alien consciousness patterns, he found that many of them had been improved by their contact with humanity. The chaos and individuality that humans brought had strengthened them, made them more than they had been before. It's like we're a catalyst, Ben explained. We don't just resist change, we help others change too. The journey back to Earth took months, but it was not a difficult time. The humans taught the Seraphim about art, music, literature, all the things that came from individual expression. The Seraphim shared their knowledge of science and technology, but now as friends rather than superior beings. When Earth finally appeared on their screens, Jake felt a mixture of relief and sadness. He was happy to be home, but he would miss the conversations with beings who are learning to be individuals again. What will you tell your people about us? Vex then asked. The truth, Jake said, that we met gods and found out they were just people who had forgotten how to live. And what will we tell our people about you? Jake smiled. Tell them that humanity is coming to the stars, and we're bringing our chaos with us. The Pathfinder landed on Earth to a hero's welcome, but Jake knew their real achievement was not in the alien technology they brought back or the new worlds they had discovered. Their achievement was in showing that individual life, with all its mésanges and uncertainty, was more valuable than any perfect system. In his final report, Jake wrote, "We encountered a species that had achieved everything we thought we wanted. Immortality, perfection, unity. But they had paid for it with their souls. Humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our weapons. It is our refusal to give up what makes us human." As news of their discovery spread across Earth, scientists and philosophers debated what it meant. Some worried that humanity was not ready for contact with such advanced beings. Others argued that humanity was exactly what the galaxy needed, a species that valued chaos over order, growth over perfection, life over mere existence. Meanwhile, in space, the former Seraphim collective continued to evolve. Some chose to become physical beings again, exploring what it meant to have bodies and limitations. Others remained as energy beings, but lived as individuals, creating new forms of art and expression that had never existed before. A few tried to rebuild their collective, but it was different now. Instead of forced unity, they created voluntary cooperation. Instead of perfect agreement, they embraced creative disagreement. They had learned that true strength came not from being the same, but from choosing to work together, despite being different. Years passed, and humanity began to encounter other Seraphim throughout the galaxy. Some were friendly, eager to learn from the species that had given them back their individuality. Others were hostile, blaming humans for destroying their perfect order. But all of them were alive in a way they had not been for centuries. They had choices to make, mistakes to learn from, and futures to create. They were no longer gods. They were people. And in the end, Jake realized that was a far better thing to be. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, full of wonders and terrors beyond imagination. But it would be explored and understood by living beings who valued their imperfections and found strength in their struggles. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger universe, not as subjects of higher powers, but as equals who understood that the greatest divine quality was the courage to remain genuinely, chaotically, beautifully alive. The stars waited, and humanity was ready to meet them as themselves.